you?
I'm good. I'm pretty good. It's our house is kind of a sick house, so I feel
You're
like
sick?
it's gonna come on tonight.
It's going around, huh?
Yeah, Lindsay has a new job downtown, so she takes the subway, and I think that's just a germ machine. The Chicago subway, the Chicago L, is basically a germ machine.
A petri dish.
Dish of death.
And it gets so packed.
Mm-hmm.
It gets so packed. Yeah. When I used to ride the train into the city in the morning, I never liked it. Elise really loved it. I just ugh. I don't like people.
Yeah.
The thing is, neither does Elise. Elise doesn't like people. I'm surprised she likes the subway as much. I guess it just reminded her of living in New York.
Yeah.
But in her opinion, Chicagoans do not have the correct train etiquette.
No.
Though.
They do not. I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
It's like no one ever taught them. Get out from in front of the damn door.
Yeah, that's really it. It's very strange for me to see because it's yeah, I mean that's it. They don't like people will just kind of rush in like the train's about to leave, and the train doesn't leave, but they don't wait for the people to come off. Not everywhere, but I think the problem probably is that Chicago is so big, and there are certainly places that you can get on and off where there isn't a problem, where the people aren't in your way. But when you're downtown, you're right. It just doesn't feel like people know what they're doing. It's very frustrating.
To their credit, the trains are not designed well the way that New York trains are designed so that you get through that door and you can get to any part of the car that you want to. You probably no matter how packed it is, just because you have the bench. But, with all the forward and backward facing and, seats and stuff, I'm dying too. I know, I got sick just from talking to you about the train. Yeah, it's not set up well, which I guess they've got some like on the more heavily trafficked lines on the red line and whatever. They've got New York cars. Anyway, this is boring.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's life. We're talking about real life here. We can talk about all kinds of things on BivBros Show, real life included. Life. Oh.
Well, I'm sorry that Lindsay's sick. I don't know if you're sick as well.
Yeah, well, it happens, I guess.
Vance, our good friend Vance McNabb, apparently is dying, pretty much. He and his whole family have raging fevers.
Wow.
Casey got sick, and then Riley, and then Vance, and now Casey's sick again. It's going around. We were just chitter-chattering on our Slack channel, and I was saying that I think this year I'm going to get a flu shot, which I've never done in my life.
Yeah.
I've always thought that's stupid. But the past this past winter, after the jump tour, I came home with the friggin' bubonic plague.
Yeah.
It lasted for weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to capture the person who gave it to me and beat them within an inch of their damn life. I was so angry. God.
Yeah.
So flu shots. Let's get flu shots this year.
Yeah, I've been getting them for years.
You have? That's so interesting. I would have thought that you would have been the kind of person who'd say that's bogus. But you're into it.
So here's the thing about flu shots. It's really not so much about you. The flu shot is super freaking important because it keeps down on the flu as a whole. So when I wrapped my brain around that, when I realized, this is not necessarily going to keep me from getting the flu if I come into contact with it, I might still get the flu or I might not, but the most important thing is that it just reduces the amount of flu period over all, like, the entire populace, and that's what's vital about it.
But how does that work? If you get the flu anyway, then you're spreading the flu. You're spreading it.
It does keep down. I don't know how they do the math, probably, but it would absolutely keep cases of people getting the flu down. Probably the healthiest people, the strongest mutants that have the ability to not get sick so much. Those people, with the help of a flu shot, are just not going to get sick. So they're not going to be yet one more opportunity for the flu shot to take hold on a human host and be transmitted to people who don't have as strong of a constitution.
Okay. Well,
so it's important.
Whatever.
I think it's important. I really do now.
Wow, that's so interesting. I had no idea that you felt that way. I'm all about it this year. Elise's company has Elise's company is having a flu shot drive, I think, in a couple weeks. So I'll take her up to the office.
The first one I got it was at Barter, and they were mandatory. And I talked to a bunch of people there, and they said, "Oh yeah, it's absolutely we just can't take the risk." And so now every time I talk to the pharmacist, and the pharmacist is always she's like, it's not necessarily about you personally whether it works great this year or not. It's about, it does keep it down. It does keep it down for sure. So go get your flu shot, everybody. It's actually not a gimmick.
Flu powder. Don't forget your flu powder. So yeah, you're sick. Lindsay's sick. What else is happening in your life? In my life?
Gosh. I am going to be captioning... did I mention this before? I'm going to be captioning the movie Candyman.
The remake?
No, but I would love to eventually. No, there is a remake of Candyman happening, being recorded filmed right now.
Oh, you're captioning a viewing of the OG.
Of the OG. So it's going to be an interesting presentation where they take the movie, they screen the movie Candyman, the original Candyman. I think it was early 90s or something. And
I think it's older than that.
You think so?
Right?
It could be. I'm ashamed to say I don't know. But Candyman is a horror film that is... Yeah?
You're right, 1992.
Yeah, I thought it was like early... It feels early 90s.
Can you, off the top of your head, can you guess who did the soundtrack?
Ooh, that's a good one.
He's one of your all-time faves. Little hint.
Not Philip Glass.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, are you serious? Philip Glass?
I'm serious. Yes.
Philip Glass did the... What?
Yes.
Holy smoke.
And I don't know if it was music that was composed specifically for... Or if they just took it. Let's see here on the old Wikipedia. Film score was composed by Philip Glass. Yeah. According to Glass, quote, "It has become a classic, so I still make money from that score. Get checks every year."
So that I didn't understand the joke that our friend Brittany had made. Brittany was yesterday. I went to a site. Sort of a walkthrough of the venue that we're going to play because I have to figure out some things as far as whether we're going to open caption, close caption this thing, and what's the best way to do it. And we were talking, and we were talking about music at one point. She said, well, we could always get Philip Glass to come in because he came to Chicago Humanities Festival last year. And I was like, man, I love Philip Glass. But I got so distracted by her even knowing who Philip Glass was, I didn't realize that she is such a horror buff that she knew that Philip Glass composed the score for this movie. I'm even more excited. Snap. Anyway, yeah.
Here, you guys. Here's a little preview of the Candyman soundtrack.
Bum bum. That's it.
Yeah, pretty much.
I once had a Philip Glass written Swatch watch. He wrote an alarm for Swatch, for a particular Swatch watch, and this is what the this is what the alarm sounded like. Bum 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 bum. That was it.
Oh man, that's sausage.
No,
Sweet.
actually, you know what? Actually, I thought it was freaking amazing, because one cool thing about Philip Glass, he's got the skills. He's got it. He was one of the proponents of the minimalism music in classical music. He is full-on legend, but he's never been afraid to make some hard cash. Never. He's always been able to ride that line between getting paid and being, a pioneer of music. And certainly people attack him for, quote unquote, selling out. But yeah, when I first heard that alarm, I was disappointed. And then I loved him all the more, because he can do that. He can do that.
Well, why not?
Yeah.
He's got a pretty website. I'm going to go ahead and say it's not feeling totally current, but it's kind of nice.
It's currenty. What they're going to do is they're going to show Candyman, and then they're going to bring in people to speak to Cabrini Green and how the movie was a statement about gentrification, and how, a statement about horror of this low-income housing and just the nightmare that Cabrini Green came. And for people who don't know what that is, it was low-income housing in a pretty central section of Chicago that became its own universe of criminal drug activity. Very, very sad situation. People were moved out of their homes to be moved into this, and it was very scary at times. And that's kind of why they filmed a horror movie there. Yeah. about
I've heard stories about the crew and cast being shot at during filming. Yeah, it was imagine the roughest neighborhood you've been in and multiply that times 100. Yeah. It was. You can still, if you walk through where Cabrini Green was, which is right near where the Apple Store is, right. Of course.
Whole Foods.
The Whole Foods and a bunch of other bougie BS. You can still see this. There are some buildings still standing where you can see kind of evidence where stuff was knocked down and. Or at least used to. I don't know. Maybe it's all torn down now. But yeah, I mean, I've heard stories about, people didn't have heating, so they would just light fires in their tub. Yeah. Right. And open a window to let the smoke out, just to not die from sub-zero Chicago winter temperatures. Mm-hmm. I mean, just inhuman conditions.
Right. It was horrific. And I think that's what Jordan Peele's remake or reboot or whatever is. Oh,
it's him. He's doing it.
Yeah, Jordan Peele. And I think that it's another statement on gentrification and I'm assuming the cons of it. They filmed a little part of it on Foster, on the street basically where I live, down the street a little bit. But that's what we've heard, is that it's going to be yet another statement on where people live and why Candyman haunts the nightmarish places that people are put, and how do you escape?
Now, why is Candyman made of bees?
I don't remember, but I'm gonna find out again.
Yeah. I know I've seen it a million years ago.
Yeah.
And I think it has something to do with, he died from being stung to death. I'm kind of scanning through the wiki now, but that, for something, and this is probably offensive to say, but there was something less scary. I was into the concept of you say his name 5 times in a mirror and he comes and messes you up. That's why first of all, don't do that. Secondly, but when he comes and he shows up and he's made of bees, I was less scared by that.
Yeah.
And of course, when you find out the backstory, it's tragic. It's horrific what happens to the man who became Candyman.
It's a strange
played
little
by
movie.
Tony Todd.
Yeah, Tony Todd.
There's a lot of layers.
Mm-hmm.
to it. I guess I need to rewatch it.
Well, I'll send you the captions when I'm done.
Peace out.
Peace out. Bye.
And I'm looking now. It's based on a story by Clive Barker. Which the one and only Clive Barker, who, gosh, he's no spring chicken nowadays.
Yeah.
No, he's only 66. I just saw that he's kicking it. He doesn't give a hoot. Philip Glass, 82. Is that what it is?
Wow.
82, yeah. He's from Baltimore. Good old Baltimore. Yeah. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about that.
I'm sure someone does. Someone out there does.
Yeah.
But that's my thing. I've got to do some thinking and some horror movie captioning. It's going to be the first film that we ever caption.
You don't do a lot. I was going to say you don't do a lot of movies. You mostly do live theater.
There's no need. But in this specific situation, it's basically going to be filmed at a quote unquote indie house, and the copy that they're getting to be shown does not come with a caption file. So I'm just going to do it live with flavor.
Is it live or is it Memorex?
Well, we'll find out.
All right.
Anything new with you? What is new with me? Nothing fun like that. You're doing so much more fun stuff. I'm just... No, nothing really new. I'm just starting to practice. Yes. For the first time in a year. I literally had not touched a drumstick since December until yesterday. So I figured, gosh, I've got some shows coming up in December. I better maybe see if I remember how to hold a stick. Sometimes I feel like you walk away from what you do and you come back and it's like you are having to relearn, not all over again, but you're feeling very, very rusty. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you come back with without that. You kind of feel it's your time away has made you feel fresher than you were when you left it. So I was surprised. It seemed to come back pretty quickly. So we'll see. Now that I've said that and I've cursed myself, every single show in December is going to be a wreck. Nice. Anyway, that's really all I've got going on. But there's plenty of pop culture stuff happening. There is. Let's go from let's do the small stuff first, and then we'll get to our main event, which our good friends Ann Martinez suggested that Matt and I watch the Dark Crystal series, Age of Resistance, on Netflix. That dropped, I guess, a couple of weeks ago, all at once, the way that Netflix does. So that'll be our main event. We'll talk about that in a second. There's a couple of other small bits and bobs. We'll start off. Spider-Man returns to the MCU. Mm-hmm. That's pretty exciting. It's funny because I knew in my heart, it just felt so broken. The concept of it felt very childish. It felt very sort of slightly manipulative in some way. And I just, it just was so silly that you would have, that anybody would think that it would be a win for Sony or Disney, Marvel, to think that you wouldn't finish the story. I know that Sony was like, "Oh, we're going to finish it. It's going to be great." But no, I don't think you're going to go from. I don't think you're going to have people be excited about a movie that's just basically a different studio having to leave out huge chunks of what it has been allowed to have for years now. All of the murals of Iron Man, or not being able to mention that. I would just, can you imagine? Or happy, any of those characters who they'd just be mysteriously gone. Yeah. Ridiculous. I guess it would have been one thing. I still haven't seen Far From Home, which is embarrassing since Spidey's my number one guy. A little bit. I just missed the window, and now I have to wait for it to come out so I can rent it. But I guess it would be one thing if they had telegraphed it from the beginning, like they knew they were going to be out, and they wrapped it up in such a way so that their next movie they would have ridden it so that he was like, I'm going off on my own. True. And that was my beef. That was kind of the sadness that I had when I first read the news. I was like, if this was a creative decision, then I'd still be bummed, but I would support it. But just knowing that it's about the suits just sucks. Yeah. And not even knowing what the story of Far From Home is. I mean, I only assume that, they set it up for there to be more,
more movies, of course. So, yeah, how are they imagining how they would just cut off the MCU entirely and make it feel not completely disjointed. Anyway, yeah, I'm glad that they're back. I tell you what it feels like to me. I get this very same feeling that I got when after New Coke. and then Coke Classic. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And for if there's anyone out there who's listening who doesn't remember, who's not old enough to remember New Coke or Coke Classic. Right. So in the early to mid 80s, Coca-Cola said, "Hey, forget our nasty old Coke. We got this stuff that's called New Coke." And it wasn't called Coca-Cola. It was called New Coke. And it was a new formula. And it was sweeter. It kind of was probably closer to Pepsi, which if you're, it's like the Beatles and the Stones. You're kind of one or the other. And our family was definitely in the South especially because, Pepsi was born in the Carolinas.
And we drink a lot of soda.
But we didn't give a damn, even though we weren't from. We hated Pepsi. Yeah. Anyway, we were upset. We were enraged. We stopped drinking Coke. We refused. Our dad stockpiled like the last remaining Coca-Cola 6-packs he could get his hands on, and we drank RC Cola after that. Kind of an indie label, I suppose. Yeah. And then a few months later, backed by popular demand, here's Coke Classic, and it was the first time that I think everyone I knew as a young kid, I'd been had by a corporation. Yeah. And this gives me a little bit of that vibe. I don't think that's what actually happens, but it still just feels like, are you just trying to get us generate excitement about this?
Which they didn't really need. I don't think that they necessarily. Well, no, I mean, meaning like what is the point? But I hear what you're saying, and if you're correct, that would be very just grody, awkward in an annoying way. But it is. So what's going to happen is Spider-Man is going to stay in the Marvel Cinematic Universe realm, the universe, for the third installment of this Peter Parker in high school business. Mm-hmm. And he's also allowed to be in one other team movie, whatever that's going to be. It's not Avengers, but whatever is
the new Avengers.
The new Avengers, whatever the team up movie is going to be, we don't know yet. So he's allowed to be in that, and that's it for now. And that will until we do go through this again.
Until Sony realizes, wait a minute, if we just let Disney keep doing this, we'll still make tons of money. It's just dumb.
It really is dumb.
Just give the mouse what they want, and they will make gold, and you can have some of that gold. What's the problem?
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, because I didn't see Venom. When it's out to rent, I'll rent it. I heard lukewarm things about it. Yeah. We've already discussed Jared Leto and Morbius. Do not care. I couldn't care less. I don't care about Morbius, the character in the comic books. He's kind of silly. Right. So do I want to see Jared Leto playing? No. Hell no.
We're definitely know that you do not want to see that.
Yeah. We don't need to cover that ground anymore. Yeah. We know where I stand.
We will, but we don't need to. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was confused when they made a Venom movie without Spidey, and it didn't make any sense. Maybe hopefully they made it make sense, but I'm assuming that they're going to try to shoehorn him into another Venom film at some point. Speaking of villains without their adversaries.
Yes.
The Joker movie has had some interesting news. It's been very controversial. I don't know if you've been reading about the goings-on.
The Joker movie?
Yeah.
Oh.
The one with Joaquin Phoenix. Yeah. So it's about to come out. It's about to premiere. Mm-hmm. And I read an article in my favorite blog, IO9, that the Army had actually issued an alert to service people that there had been incredible chatter on the dark web from what they call incels. Do you know what an incel is?
Yeah.
Involuntary celibate, which means a loser white male who cannot have a girlfriend or have sex, so he decides to kill people.
Yes.
So they're called incels, which is, I think, is kind of an interestingly condescending name for them, which is pretty funny. Anyway, there's been a lot of chatter on the dark web surrounding the premiere of this movie, and there's concern that there will be some kind of organized
movement
incel.
Yikes.
Because. And so they went to interview Joaquin Phoenix and the director, whose name I don't remember right now, about this idea that like this movie is about a disgruntled white guy going nuts and shooting up everybody, right? And somehow neither the director nor Joaquin Phoenix seem to have ever discussed that in today's culture where white men pick up guns and start killing people, that is not like glorifying that with a character like the Joker, who is, for all intents and purposes, an anti-hero in this movie. He's a villain in the realm of Batman, but he's the main character. He's, no one's seen the movie. I don't know that they're making him out to be an anti-hero, but I'm sure you are meant to empathize with him somewhat.
Sure.
So there's concern that, like, how is that going to affect? Yeah, how's that going to play? And apparently, Joaquin Phoenix had no idea what to say, and he literally got up and left an interview without saying a word.
What?
Yeah, just left. Bye. According to the director, it was just something that they never discussed. Not like none of the suits. He didn't, like, on the set. Like, it was like, what do you mean you didn't talk about this? This is. Anyway, it's kind of crazy. So what I'm going to ask you personally, brother, I still have zero interest in seeing the Joker movie, and I'll get to that in a second. But I have a bad feeling something bad's going to happen somewhere. I feel like, and I pray. I hope it. I don't pray to a religious thing, but I hope and pray that nothing bad happens and that this is all just noise. But I'm going to avoid seeing that in the theater, I think.
And you're asking me to do the same.
Yeah. I had one experience in Chicago where I went, Elise and I went to a theater. I don't even remember what the movie was anymore. And I had a feeling like this guy came in and he sat right behind us. And you know that feeling when like your Spidey sense just starts screaming at you?
Yeah.
I had the worst feeling about this guy. Like something really bad was about to happen. It did not happen. Thank goodness. But I just feel like when you get we shouldn't make choices based on fear. So I'm not promoting that for you or for anyone else, but I just maybe sit this one out. What do you think?
I'll definitely consider it. I don't know that I need to see Joker in the theaters. We only go see movies. we go to see movies at 10 o'clock in the morning on Sundays. So
yes,
we really don't like seeing movies any other time. Lindsay doesn't like to pay the extra price. We like matinees, and then I like not being surrounded by anyone, to be honest.
Noisy people on their cell phones.
And it's shocking to us if we ever do go to see a movie that is a normal time, a decently normal time. We're like, whoa, people really go see the movies. But most of the time we're alone or nearly alone. So I think of all the people that might be in a dangerous situation, we would be pretty low on the list. But for this movie in particular, if it's one that she really wants to see in the theater, I don't think she's going to. But then I'll make sure that at the very least it's going to be at a unpopular hour.
Well, here's why I'm going to actively avoid it, other than the incel piece. More importantly, I'm going to avoid it because the director came out and it admitted exactly what it sounded like the concept of this film sounded like to me, which was I was already getting the vibe. It's not, the Joker is not set in the DC universe, the DC EU, or whatever the heck it's called. It's not attached. There's no Batman in it. It's just its own, little slice of the universe telling that story. And that's okay. I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but it really started to smell like to me that they really just wanted to make this movie about a guy who kind of goes nuts and gets violent. And they decided to call it Joker. They decided to take this character and make it the Joker.
And wrap it up.
And yeah. And, it's a similar problem that I had with the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes movies, where, it's kind of a 19th century super spy. Cool. Like I'm into that. That's great. Just don't call it Sherlock Holmes, because these movies have nothing to do with Sherlock Holmes.
Right.
So I read an interview, like, as there's been a lot of articles coming out, as this movie is about to premiere, and the director's getting a lot of questions, and he basically just comes right out and says it, like, we wanted to make a real film about a real person and sneak it into the world of superhero films by calling it Joker.
Right.
And that to me is just unacceptable.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that. That's not Joker to me.
Sure.
That's fine to make that movie. That's great. Don't call it Joker. That's not what this is about for me. That's not what I'm interested in seeing. So,
yeah.
Anyways, you won't catch me in a movie theater in cells because I don't care about seeing this movie.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I hear what you're saying. I totally accept it. I think I'm able to distance myself from the concept. I absolutely agree. We won't get too far into it, but to me, apparently they're going to do a new CW television show called Nancy Drew, and I know nothing about it. I just saw a billboard for it, so I'm sure it's either going to be great or not great. But the point is that will bring some people to the table, no matter what that show is about. But to me, for example, Veronica Mars was a modern, interesting version of a Nancy Drew, someone who goes and has adventures and solves mysteries and so on and so forth. I didn't need for her to be called Nancy Drew to have that same feeling. And I think you're right. This did not need to be called Joker for me to enjoy a performance of a guy going insane and it be an actor that I do admire and appreciate. But yeah, I'm with you. Well, let's burn through some other quick DC-related rumors. So the Batman movie that's being made by Matt Reeves. And Matt Reeves has done some cool movies. I can't remember what they are off the top of my head. But I saw something today that was disheartening. A while back, Matt Reeves had said that he wanted this Batman movie to be – it was very exciting for me. He wanted this Batman movie to be about Batman being the world's greatest detective, right? Which we've never seen in a Batman movie. The Nancy Drew of superheroes.
Yes. Yeah. It would not quite as good as Nancy Drew, probably. That cape is heavy, weighs you down. They get into it a little bit in the Dark Knight movies, but not that much. It's still like more high-tech gadgetry, almost James Bond-like than it is about being detecting anything. So the idea of them doing a noirish Batman movie was very exciting. But then I read today that Warner Brothers is looking to cast the Riddler, Penguin, Catwoman, Two-Face, and, quote, a host of other villains. Ew. And I just thought, this is sounding less and less like a cool noir detective story and more like a Jerry Bruckheimer f***a-thon. Boring. Anyways, and then our other DC Batman adjacent thing is the new trailer for the Birds of Prey. The first official trailer came out today for that. Birds of Prey, and the stupidly long title about Harley Quinn, who is not even in Birds of Prey in the comics. Like she's not one of them. Right. So number one, who cares? I don't know if you watched. Did you watch the trailer?
I did.
I don't know about you. I had no idea what was going on.
Sure.
Zero idea. And I thought, gosh, do I not know what's going on because I couldn't bring myself to finish watching Suicide Squad?
No.
And I realized I don't think so. I think that it might just be a mess. It looks like a mess.
I'll say this. I don't have any qualms with cinema and movies or any medium changing the medium that it's based on. I'm never, ever going to have a problem with that until you ruin it, until you really make it worse than it was. A lot of times one telling of a story is better than the original. So it doesn't bother. Birds of Prey, whether she's in it or not on the comics, doesn't bother me. But my thought when watching this trailer, and this is the first trailer, so there may be some really amazing cuts. But if these lines that they pulled out of the movie are the best ones to put in the first trailer that people see, that's not good. That's a bad.
I don't even remember what were the lines. Do you remember any?
I should have written them down, but it's like,
I love to whack people with my hammer.
I'm Harley Quinn, bitch, or something. Yeah, stuff like like you can't call a woman that. You can call them angry hooker, bitch. I'm just really, I don't know.
I like the way they cook it. Here's my problem with the title Birds of Prey and Harley Quinn not being in Birds of Prey. I don't care that necessarily she's in Birds of Prey. What I kind of take issue with is that originally the movie was just called Birds of Prey. And then after that it was announced, it's going to be called Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of the One Harley Quinn, or whatever it's called. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, well, the reason why they're doing that is because whether Suicide Squad was a good movie or not, Margot Robbie, whatever her last name is clearly a breakout star. Harley Quinn is one of the most popular characters in recent years, and let's just make this about her, and just kind of shoehorn her in there. So the movie is called Birds of Prey with a subtitle, and I don't remember seeing any of the Birds of Prey. Yeah. I saw Harley Quinn. I was like, oh, Ewan McGregor's in it. I didn't know that. And then whoever the birds are, right? It's Huntress.
I saw Huntress, I think.
Black Canary? Is she one?
Yes. You see her singing.
Okay. And then Oracle?
I don't remember Oracle, but I only saw it once. They might be in there. But I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying.
It's veering into that Joker Sherlock Holmes territory again, where you're like, just make a Harley Quinn movie.
Sure.
What's your problem?
Yeah.
Anyway, boring. DC, you're boring. Titans, who cares?
Yeah.
I watched 7 minutes of episode 3. Boring.
It's not.
What's wrong?
It's not going to make it.
You guys?
It's not going to make it. And I may not. I'm kind of having to cut down financially. And I looked at my list of subscriptions, and it's going to be tough, man. I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep it up. I don't know if I'm going to keep paying for DC Universe. I know that, but here's the flip side though, is that I did take our friend Nick's advice, and I bought, because it's not a DC Universe yet, I bought the first episode of Jimmy Olsen, Superman's Pal, in 2019, written by Matt Fraction. And it's super great. It's super great. I literally laughed out loud at one point.
Oh, good.
And it's everything Matt Fraction is, just quirky and wink and human and so I don't know.
I'm looking forward to it.
I know, but is that a reason to keep DC Universe? I'm still not sure.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, we're in the age of, everyone's got a streaming service, and Disney Plus, I mean, they've made it impossible to not get, because there's so much amazing content that's going to come with it. Yeah, we hope. But I mean, at the very least, I'm going to have to see what the Mandalorian is all about.
Sure.
But something's probably going to have to get swapped out, and that might be it. Although that will be sad for me, because I as buggy as the comics reader has been, I've gotten a lot of quality time out of that. Yeah. Anyways, DC, get your act together. Shall we move on to the main event?
Sure.
Okay. So Ann Martinez, thanks Ann Martinez for your suggestion to watch The Dark Crystal. I wasn't sure if Ann had watched it herself or was just suggesting that we watch it randomly, but it seemed like maybe she had. So we did. I watched I've only seen the first episode. I don't know how far you got.
Just honestly, honestly, this is going to be mostly you, because I watched probably half of the first episode and really enjoyed it, and then I said, "Oh man, I've got to watch the movie again first." So I stopped.
Okay.
So I guess no spoilers for real this time.
No spoilers. Okay, I won't get spoilery.
It's okay if you do.
So there's not much to spoil.
Yeah.
Actually,
what were your thoughts?
I went into it. I didn't do any reading about the movie. I hadn't seen the movie in a very long time. I'd seen it once. I've seen it since I was an adult, but probably not. I was in my 20s, probably. Okay. And at the time, I was not. Well, I'll give you a little background. So Matt and I saw The Dark Crystal, the movie, in the theater when we were children, and I don't know what it was like for you, brother, but for me, it was deeply terrifying
and life-changing. It was. Yeah, we loved that movie. I'd say almost as much as E.T. Maybe. I loved it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'd say for most people who I know who grew up loving The Never-Ending Story, The Dark Crystal was that for Matt.
Sure.
And me. It was lesser known than Labyrinth, and definitely lesser known than The Never-Ending Story, but it was the one that we saw. And I remember we saw Labyrinth in the theater too, which is also Jim Henson, and The Never-Ending Story is not. That's something else. I still to this day have not seen Never-Ending Story.
Me either, and I refuse.
Don't need to. I see that flying animal and I just run away. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the Skeksis were truly, truly deeply something like scratching the animal brain of my little child mind. And I just was terrified of them. It was horrific. So
we were little. We were very little.
We were pretty young. I mean, I guess it was early 80s. Let's see. Let's find out. The Dark Crystal.
But why are you doing that? It was, but in effect, I think we watched it a few times in 82. The theater. Yeah. And I remember I created a Dungeons and Dragons character called Gelflings. Do you remember that?
Wow.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, so that they were, I was really into the concept of this little Jim Henson magic, pre-death Jim Henson. And yeah, so it meant a lot. I could make myself sad if I watch it again and it not hold up, because Labyrinth is pretty tough. It's pretty tough.
It's
okay, but
I think it still has the magic. When I saw it, and this is 20 years ago now, at least, probably. I was probably 25 when I saw it last. But I do remember thinking, wow, this is long. Wow, I'm not as into this as I was when I was, however old I was in 1982.
Sure.
And so I hadn't really thought about The Dark Crystal that much. And when they announced the series that was coming out, I was like, oh, that's interesting. But I wasn't champing at the bit, as they say.
Well,
so I didn't do any refresher going into it. I just turned it on. And I was immediately I wasn't really sure going in, is this happen? Are these events that are happening after the movie? And this is because it's called The Age of Resistance. Right. It kind of implied this could be any time. Is this 30 years later? What is this? Well, it's a prequel, as I found out.
Okay.
It's definitely a prequel. So it's everything that leads up. So if you watch the movie, you're going to get some crazy spoilers.
Oh, so maybe I shouldn't.
You maybe shouldn't.
Wow. Okay.
Because they're you know what happens to the Gelflings when you watch the movie.
Right. Okay.
So anyway, so my impressions, without talking about the plot of the first episode, are, I mean, nobody makes magic like the Henson Company makes magic. It's kind of incredible in the age of CGI, where they can make it, anything, literally anything, that puppets are not only still relevant, but they are just as magical in their own way, and that there's a desire to create and see that. It's dense. It's much more dense than the movie. And I remember, like, in the movie, you kind of know who the Gelflings are, and you know who the Skeksis are. And this is, I read actually kind of a primer after I watched the episode, kind of like, what did I just watch? So someone kind of broke it down for me, and they likened it to Game of Thrones. Like, there's multiple groups of Gelflings who live all over the damn place, and they all do different stuff. Some are kind of librarians, and they're studying, they're scholars. Some are warriors, some are kind of earthy clerics, magic user types, which is way more dense than the movie, where as far as the Gelflings go. I think that my favorite things about most Henson stuff, I haven't seen a lot of it in recent years, but certainly watching this first episode, it's just eye candy. Like the detail of the sets and everything. It's seamless to see what is practical and what there is definitely some computer generated stuff going on, but it looks like a lot of it is real, and it looks like it's just been so lovingly made. But my favorite characters aren't usually, or at least in this first episode, aren't the main characters.
Right.
They're all of the weird little
things,
the detail creatures that are just like there's a little guy who lives in the library, one of the Gelfling library. He's just eating books, and I love that guy.
Yeah.
All those little weird world building animals. Those are the things that get me. In terms of the plot, like, there was a lot of ground laying in this first episode. I didn't find myself super focused. It was kind of tough. It's a little dense.
Okay.
So I wasn't immediately drawn in. IO9 freaked out about it. So I think the bar had been set pretty high. I expected to be sucked in immediately, and I wasn't as much. But maybe that's just a remnant of how I felt about the Dark Crystal 20 years ago. Maybe I don't know.
You were scared.
I'm scared. The Skeksis, I'm happy to report, are still scary as fuck. But so I immediately had to start looking, okay, who are these voices? I recognize some of them.
Right.
It's unlike back in the day, which I think the voices were all genius voice actors who were all unknown to most people. There were probably a lot of Muppeteers. But this time around, it's everybody. Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
Simon Pegg.
I immediately heard
Isaac.
Mark Hamill. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mark Hamill. I think we can all agree that Mark Hamill is a much better voice actor than he ever has been a live film actor.
For sure.
I will say that his Skeksis voice is uncomfortably close to his Joker voice.
Right.
And that's okay. It's still cool. But gosh, Taron Egerton, the list goes. Eddie Izzard's in there somewhere. I don't know if he was in this episode or not, but it is a cast of thousands. So that's cool.
I'm very excited. I'm very excited. I just think that, it won me immediately when it was puppets. I didn't want to check and see whether it was CGI versus puppet, but as soon as it had that same look and feel of the Henson jam, I was like, okay, I'm in. I'm definitely so relieved. It feels like that's all I've been talking about is how I wish CGI was used less. And that's not necessarily true. There's plenty of CGI that I find really great, but like Marianne, the Harv show, and then this, it's just when you don't use it for things that don't need it. Yeah. It's so much better. Because we loved, yes, I know that there was an element of those puppets were one of the only ways to tell a story in the Henson world. They made puppets. That's what they did. But that's all we needed, man. We did not need hyper realism to get by. They were just as real to us. And now I can not only see that they are, still the same kind of joyful realism, but I can just marvel nonstop at how talented those people are that are creating these things. It's insane.
It feels like the CGI that they're employing is only there to fill in some background, and it's not. There are some characters. I think there's like what they call it, a spitter or something. It's kind of a spidery type of thing that clearly seems like maybe that's entirely CG, but it's also not an important character. Everything that is important is a physical puppet.
Great.
And the Skeksis, the way that they move, the way they look, and they're all different, right? They all have, it's so interesting how they all have different horrible faces and the clothes that they wear. It's so viscerally creepy and this time around even more disgusting. There's one, I don't remember if she was in the original movie, but there's one that has these horrible pustules all over her face that she keeps popping. Ew. And I'm like trying to eat my oatmeal. I'm like, oh God.
It looks like her face.
Up. Yeah, it's just vile.
I wonder if the reason that, I know a lot of people like The Dark Crystal, but I wonder if one of the reasons that we particularly loved it is that you can see all of the theater behind it. Like it's so obviously theater with costumes and human beings moving things. I wonder
but Labyrinth was like that too.
Yeah, of course. I any of those things that we loved over, say, what's a good example of the claymation? Like I never liked claymation as much as I liked. The right word, claymation? Is that the right word? Claymation.
You mean like
Land of the Lost? Land of the Lost.
Oh, dude, don't lie. We love Land of the Lost.
But it wasn't as magical as we love Land of the Lost the way that
Clash
we should.
Clash of the Titans.
Yes, that's a better one.
Clash of the Titans looked very fakey, like the Gorgon and the Medusa and all that stuff. Yeah, it looked,
It takes you out of it.
The remake and the remake of it that's fully CGI insanity, it's boring as hell.
Yeah, wow.
I think that, there's an argument to be made that the best CGI out there are movies like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, all the Toy Stories, anything that Pixar is doing, like the ones that are, it's the tools chosen that fit that medium exactly for what it is, right, and not to try to make something look hyper real alongside human actors. I don't know. After I saw Into the Spider-Verse, I felt like, this is the best way to tell any superhero story, probably. And watching The Dark Crystal, does it have to be puppets to tell this story? I don't know. I think it seems like Jim Henson spent at least the early part of his career being asked that question a lot, like why puppets? Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've done any reading about like his early, like where he got his start and stuff. Are you aware of that?
No.
So the very first Muppet ever was Rolf.
Wow.
And he was. Jim Henson had a bit that he did on the Jimmy Dean show, like Jimmy Dean Sausage.
Wow.
And Rolf was a character, and I don't know I'm sure you could probably find snippets of his, and I think he had to pitch it. Like he did that, he got that gig, and then but he had a dream of doing a show with puppets for primetime audience, an adult audience. And he got, of course, pushed back. Nobody cared. And I've read this, but I don't remember anymore how he finally succeeded. But that, of course, became the Muppet Show, mm-hmm, which is so crazy that it was on prime time. It wasn't a kids show in the middle of the day, that's not what he wanted to do.
Right.
And of course, we all know what happened next. So I guess he's been kind of fighting that fight his whole life. Like, why does this have to be puppets if it's not for kids?
Yeah.
Which the Dark Crystal is kind of more. It feels like the style of storytelling feels more like it's for kids than the Muppets in a way. It's got adult themes. It's definitely dark. It's in the title, but they're turning gelflings into goop to change their essence.
Right.
And so that's up. Yeah. But the style of like high fantasy storytelling does kind of lend itself towards a younger audience in some ways. Sure. Despite being so dark. I don't know. Does it have to be puppets? Don't know. Don't care. One of the saddest things that I could say, dumbest thing that I've done is not. There's a museum here in Atlanta called the Museum for Puppetry Arts, and they had the Skeksis on display for a long time, and I never went to go see it.
Ouch.
I know. I think they still have it. I just think it's not out anymore. So that's dumb. I messed up there. I can't ever talk about Jim Henson without bringing up the worst/best thing that I ever did.
Right.
Which I've told you this story, but I'll just tell other people.
Yeah.
So one morning, I just ended up going down a YouTube hole. I think I started by watching old Muppet Show clips on YouTube. Specifically, I was looking at the time where Buddy Rich was on the show, and he does this amazing. He does actually two drum solos. One in that particular Muppet Show episode, the Muppet Theater is kind of, they haven't paid their rent or something, or there's something going on with the electrical system, and the lights keep going on and off. And so the lights go off, and Kermit goes backstage to tell Buddy Rich, like, "Oh, I'm sorry, the power's out. We're not going to be able to have you perform." And Buddy Rich is, he says, "What are you talking about? I don't need lights to play drums." So he gets his sticks out, and from his dressing room upstairs, he plays the most incredible drum, quote unquote, drum solo all over the theater, Muppets, railing on the stairs, whatever, on his way to the stage. And it is just, it's so musical and awesome. Buddy Rich was, he was one of the greats.
Buddy Rich.
And then the lines come back on, and he does do a solo. He does actually a drum battle with Animal, which is super awesome. But so anyway, I watched that, and that was great. And then I saw this thing that I couldn't keep from clicking, which was Jim Henson's funeral.
Right.
And I was like, what is that? And it was actual footage of Jim Henson's funeral at the New York Cathedral. And it was packed to, you could not fit another human being in that place. It was just standing room only. And there were two things that were just mind melting. And I defy any human being who was not a sociopath, if you can watch this and not cry, then there's something broken and dead inside you. But so they, at one point, Big Bird comes out, because people are all paying tribute to Jim, and Big Bird comes out and he sings, "It's Not Easy Being Green." And at the end of it, he looks up into the sky and he says, "I'm going to miss you, Kermit."
Wow.
I still get choked up.
Yeah.
It's still, it's so hard. So that's amazing. And then at the very end, they sing this, I guess it was maybe a Sesame Street song. One, I don't remember the lyrics, but it's like, one is a good number, but two, a little bit better, something like that. Right. Not the real lyrics, folks.
Yeah.
But close. Yeah, but close, the point is, each Muppeteer comes out with their Muppet until they get to whatever the big number is, and they're all singing along, and everybody's there, and it will just you'll cry like a baby. I promise you, unless you're a sociopath.
And you're not a crier. You're not. I'm not saying you're not a sociopath for sure, but you're not. I cry at pretty much every movie.
I don't cry in movies.
I could definitely do.
True.
So for you to. I've actually never watched that because I'm afraid, because of the fact that if you cried, then I wouldn't be able to get.
You won't stand a chance, I promise. Right. And it's, I'm not a big crier. A lot, I think it's maybe because I'm not one of those people. I'm an ugly crier, right? It's not just here's some tears.
You can't have a romantic tear sliding down your face.
No, never. That's never going to happen to me. Never. So yeah. So maybe that's just my reflex of just keeping me from public shame and humiliation.
Sure.
To not cry at movie theaters. I cried once. I cried once at a movie theater, but actually I waited until I got outside the theater.
Yes.
I was there. Anyways, treat yourself to that.
Treat yourself.
Worth watching. If you need a good cry, that will do it. Dark Crystal. I'll probably move on to round 2 just because it's so beautifully done. I feel like they just worked so damn hard on this. Clearly, you kind of need to do them the service of seeing what they did. So I'm not 100% invested in the story yet, but I'm still curious, and that's where I'm at.
Yep, I like it. I say, gosh, we didn't really offer that many things this time to get on. I'm going to finish Dark Crystal, the first episode. I guess I won't go to the movie if that's a big spoiler. I'll start from the very beginning, and so I'll give a report.
You might want to, since it's a prequel. It might be the way to go.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this might be. I'm going to try a show called Undone, which is in that style. Our friend Randy recommended. I watched one last night, and it is super interesting. I have no idea where it's going. The lead has a cochlear implant. We don't know why. She doesn't have a deaf accent, so I don't know. I don't know what that story is going to be, but.
So that's either going to get high praise and interest from you, or extreme criticism.
Yep,
and
yeah, that's true. I either go one way or the other, and so we'll see. I'm very
see how they handle.
Very picky about my cochlear implant knowledge.
Usage in pop culture. Speaking of which, they're making a sequel to that film, Quiet Place.
Oh. Okay.
And originally, what's his name? Who's the dude? The main guy?
John
Krasinski. So John Krasinski, he wrote and directed the original movie. Yeah. And so he came back and he said he didn't really write it with an intention of there being a sequel, but it was more successful than they thought it was going to be. And he said, okay, I'll write it, but I don't want to be involved in any other way. And so he wrote it. And then after he wrote it, he was like, but now I don't want anyone else to direct it. Okay. So he's going back.
All right.
And I don't know. I haven't read an update on that in a while, so I don't know what's going on with that. But that was good enough for me, despite your complaints about their cochlear implant use, that I'd go back for the second helping.
I'll go back for the second helping, but I do hope that they've learned that cochlear implants do not work that way. That it would never work that way. So as long as they have, if they figure that out, great.
Dude, it's also set in the future. It's like slightly in the future. Their cochlear implants could work that way.
Yeah, but they looked exactly like. I don't know. I could argue this for hours. I've gone on. I don't ever forum. I'm not a forum guy, but I went on trying to find people that agreed with me, and I found some because they didn't. It's not possible what they did. It just bugs me a lot because.
What if they were smokelier implants? No?
Well, then I accept.
Okay, good.
And with that sounds like the perfect ending to a perfect podcast about smokelier.
Perfect podcast.
Smokelier implants.
Smoke them if you got them.
Yeah.
Brother, I miss you so much.
I miss you so much. I love you a bunch.
I love you a bunch. Hey, everybody, we miss you too. Please go to our face page and give us your thoughts. If there's anything that you want to talk about with us or have us watch and discuss, please let us know. As always,
we've simplified everything. Yeah, we've simplified everything. It's now just facebook.com/Bivins Brothers. Have at it. We're just combining all of our different worlds into one, because who cares? And
one big messy world of nerdery and business.
Nerdery, yeah.
And more nerdery of a different, more boring type. Speaking of which, BivBros Show is, as always, brought to you by Bivins Brothers Creative, where Matt and I make websites and other stuff like that.
Yes.
Thanks, Bivins Brothers Creative. And that's it. Drop us a line. Say hi or goodbye, whichever feels good to you.
Both.
Right now, I'm going to say goodbye to you, brother.
I'm going to say goodbye to you until next week, brother.
Love you so much.
Love you so much. Farewell.
Goodbye.
Come on in and have a good old time. Have a fun time.